message to the new government? Do you think they get the kind of rural economy at all?
No, I don't think any of them have set foot outside Kentish Town for the last 35 years. No, they're a hopeless bunch.
So would you invite Keir to your pub, Keir Starmer, Prime Minister?
No, he's banned. He's actually the first person to be banned. He's actually on a board in the hall. He's banned.
Why? What have you got against him?
Hello? I thought you were running a news operation.
Keir Starmer's composure reportedly disintegrated with the sudden intensity of a microwave burrito bursting under pressure, triggered by a scathing critique from none other than Jeremy Clakson, the legendary broadcaster famous for his automotive carnage and equally sharp wit, delivered a surgical takedown that transformed the Prime Minister's supposed nerves of steel into political jelly. This unexpected confrontation left Starmer visibly flustered, sparking a reaction so dramatic that it has been compared to the most scandalous chapters of recent political history. Clarkson's ability to unravel the Prime Minister's stoic exterior with such ease has left observers eager to dissect every detail of a meltdown that is being described as far more entertaining than any leaked government transcript.
Very much differ from what the figures that the farmers are holding up in their banners today. Do you think those farmers have been gulled, maybe, by some tax-dodging millionaires who want them out there demonstrating like this?
Well, look, I support our farmers. I think it's very important we do so, and that's why we put a huge amount into. We put £5 billion into farming over the next 2 years and food sustainability. It's hugely important.
What's going
to farmers
on the streets? Why are they there?
Well, I think the most important thing that I can do is to engage in dialogue and be absolutely clear. For a typical case, parents wanting to pass on to their child a farm, so that's a typical case. The threshold is £3 million, and that means the vast majority, before anyone pays inheritance tax, that means the vast majority of farms will be totally unaffected by this. And it's important, I think, that I do keep restating that, because that's a very...
Keir Starmer, a leader whose charisma is frequently compared unfavourably to a damp napkin, has found himself back in the spotlight after being systematically dismantled by Jeremy Clakson. There is a profound irony in the Prime Minister's career being flattened by a man who displays more passion for reviewing tractors than the government does for parliamentary debate. It represents the absolute zenith of political mediocrity. While this intellectual collision unfolded, a much louder message was being roared from Doncaster to Dover as thousands of ordinary citizens participated in a massive national strike. Despite a desperate media blackout and the dismissive snobbery of the Westminster elite, proud Britons took to the streets to demand an end to illegal immigration, the net zero agenda and the punitive inheritance tax on farmers. Clarkson's critique of this situation was anything but subtle. He essentially drove a metaphorical Land Rover through Starmer's cautious persona, leaving the Prime Minister's reputation idling in the exhaust fumes of his own hypocrisy.
The next Parliament, I'd like to see the government prioritising farming. We've been asked to diversify, and when we try to do that, the local authorities tell us we can't.
Keir Starmer has been carrying himself with all the courage of a man nervously attempting to cancel a gym membership over the phone. Every time he takes the podium, it feels as though he is desperately hunting for the most sterile and clinical response available. Watching his performance is akin to seeing a boxer attempt to win a championship by politely requesting that his opponent stop punching him. This display of timidity could not have come at a worse moment, as Starmer is already struggling to convince the public that he is something more than a Tory intern on a misplaced work experience placement. Just as he attempted to project an image of authority, Jeremy Clakson charged into the fray, body-slamming the Prime Minister's reputation with all the grace and subtlety of a bulldozer ploughing through a prize-winning flower show.
Here to support the farmers. It's that simple. So they need all the help they can get, really. If she'd have wanted to take out the likes of James Dyson and investment bankers and so on, she would have used a sniper's rifle. But she's used a blunderbuss and she's hit all this lot. It was, as I understand it, it was a very rushed last-minute decision. And I think, we all make mistakes in life, and I think it's time for them to say, you know what, we this one up a bit and back down. That's my view. So I thought if I told a bunch of people that I'd bought a farm so I could shoot pheasants, it might look bad, so I thought I'd better come up with another excuse. And I said, well...
While the British public is starving for authenticity, bold vision, and perhaps a flicker of genuine personality, Starmer remains preoccupied with distributing beige policy pamphlets as if auditioning for a particularly dull office management role. His penchant for fence-sitting has reached Olympic proportions. If indecision were a competitive event, he would be atop the podium, waving with a look of confused hesitation. He is the sort of character who would refuse to choose between tea or coffee without first commissioning a focus group to weigh the options. Consequently, when someone like Jeremy Clakson, a man whose concept of nuance involves driving a caravan off a cliff, calls you out for a lack of direction, it isn't merely a verbal roasting, it is a full-blown political autopsy.
Of course, that the agricultural industry is one of the most difficult areas to decarbonise, requiring substantial investment. On that basis, will his family farms tax help or hinder?
I'm very pleased that the budget, we put £5 billion over the next 2 years into farming and food sustainability, which is hugely important to support our farmers. He will also, no doubt, have noticed the money that's been allocated to deal with flooding, which is a constant cause of problems for farmers, and the money that's been put into dealing with the outbreak of disease, which is devastating for so many farmers. He will also...
What makes Jeremy Clarkson's jabs so potent isn't just their wit, but the fact that they resonate with a sense of underlying truth that the Prime Minister can't seem to shake. Starmer's current strategy appears to be a passive wait for the opposition to self-destruct, while he quietly tinkers with administrative minutiae, effectively asking for a standing ovation simply for not being his predecessor. It is the political version of a restaurant boasting that its food hasn't poisoned anyone lately. Hardly a compelling reason to visit. Clarkson's genius lies in how effortlessly he peeled back this master strategist persona with nothing more than a microphone and a dose of blunt common sense, exposing a leader who looks more likely to fold a hand before the cards are even dealt. Every decision Starmer makes feels precision-engineered to impress a vanishing demographic that still views the Blair era through rose-tinted glasses, while his bold vision often amounts to little more than a font change on a policy briefing. Where Labour once stood for transformative ideals, Starmer's brand of leadership offers only a half-hearted disapproval that carries all the fiery passion of a disappointed grandmother spotting pineapple on a pizza.
Clarkson has said, I'm surrounded by farmers and plasterers and brickies and butchers, and all I hear all day long is that there is too much immigration. He said, but if they say this out loud or if they go on a march, they are told by the London elite they are far-right extremists or racist thugs. For the most part, he says, they're not. They're just people who know that they have to shut up when the last post is played and that a cheese rolling down a hill is funny. And he said, the fact is that 4 million people voted for reform. And he said, and more than that voted for Brexit. And Keir Starmer is upsetting them by labelling them as modern-day Hitlers. And he says, I therefore suggest that both he and his friends at the BBC calm down the rhetoric, or we could be heading for some serious trouble. And he's absolutely...
Jeremy Clarkson, the man who once famously attempted to navigate the English Channel in a Nissan pickup, has somehow emerged as a surprisingly grounded voice of reason in the current political circus, often sounding more relatable than the Prime Minister himself. In this upside-down reality, Clarkson's bluntness serves as a sharp contrast to Starmer's economic vision, which many find as clear and engaging as a half-remembered dream. While Starmer's explanations of policy tend to be vague, abstract and sleep-inducing, Clarkson has skewered the government's approach by suggesting that even livestock possess more common sense when it comes to resource management. This entire exchange highlights the fundamental flaw in Starmer's leadership. He treats politics like a dry courtroom drama, striving to be technically correct for an imaginary judge, while the rest of the country is shouting for a leader who actually demonstrates conviction.
Well, because I'm here to support farmers.
Right. Are you angry?
It's difficult to be angry on somebody else's behalf. That's like being... Yes, no, I'm not angry on someone else's behalf.
Right. So it's not about you. It's not about your farm and the fact that you bought a farm to avoid inheritance tax.
Classic BBC there. Classic. Oh, yeah. It's not the fact that I bought a farm to avoid inheritance tax. The fact.
You told the Sunday Times in 2021 that's why you bought it.
In stark contrast, Jeremy Clarkson has entered the fray with a forceful energy, not out of a desire for high office, but because he detected a total vacuum of conviction and filled it with the one quality Starmer cannot simulate: authentic confidence. Regardless of one's opinion of Clarkson, he never pretends to be anyone but himself. whereas Starmer appears to be playing a political version of Twister, permanently contorted in an attempt to reach for the left while keeping his stance anchored in the centre. The real tragedy lies in the fact that this was supposed to be Starmer's definitive moment. With the Conservatives disintegrating and the previous leadership's approval ratings at historic lows, he still remains unable to truly connect with the electorate. Clarkson didn't just highlight this failure, he broadcast it with the explosive impact of a high-octane stunt, and the country laughed, not out of malice, but because the critique felt undeniably accurate.
She was trotting out. Nobody's affected. Rachel Reeves says so. Since when was the BBC the mouthpiece of this infernal government? I'm going to finish, if I may, with a message to the government. I do. Not a shouty one, it's this. For the sake of everybody here, and for all the farmers who are stuck at home today, paralysed by a fog of despair over what's been foisted upon them, I beg of the government to be big, to accept that this was rushed through, it wasn't thought out, and it's a mistake. That's the big thing to do, admit it, and back down.
It is not that he lacks concern. If anything, Starmer is likely overinvested in the clinical precision of metrics, polling data, and strategic triangulation. However, true leadership isn't about the laboratory-grade engineering of the least offensive opinion. It requires a genuine commitment to a cause, even when that cause is subjected to a public roasting by someone like Jeremy Clakson. If a leader is going to be dismantled on a national stage, they should at least face it with a degree of dignity, rather than offering the kind of weak, saturated rebuttal we recently witnessed. Ultimately, watching Clarkson shred Starmer's persona was more than just entertaining. It was clarifying. It served as a stark reminder of the Prime Minister's apparent allergy to authenticity. He has now retreated to his comfort zone, awkwardly backtracking and muttering vague disapproval in the hope that no one noticed how Clarkson accomplished in 5 minutes what Labour's entire communications team hasn't managed in 5 years, exposing the Prime Minister as catastrophically uninspiring. The issue isn't that Starmer is incompetent, it's that he is terminally beige. Every time he speaks, the experience is less like a call to action and more like the faint static of a television channel broadcasting PowerPoint slides narrated by a tax consultant.
Well, you've got 96%. Well, the same place that Rachel Reeves does, from the middle of her head.
Right.
From the Sixth Form Debating Society that she was no doubt a member of.
Okay.
Which formed her opinions and yours.
I am not expressing opinions. I'm literally asking you questions. You know that, Mr. Clarkson.
Right.
So, what is your message to this government?
Please back down. Please.
And get the money from where?
Well, they've got 40 billion.
Whether it was his intent or not, Clarkson's intervention effectively stripped away the layers of political marketing to reveal a fundamental lack of substance beneath the surface. He held up a mirror and Starmer faltered, not because the reflection was unflattering, but because it appeared almost entirely hollow. The core issue remains a perceived absence of genuine conviction, replaced by a neatly pressed persona defined by extreme caution and a sense of mild disappointment. While critics may dismiss Clarkson as an unlikely political commentator, his ability to dismantle a carefully curated image with blunt, tractor-focused common sense only highlights the Prime Minister's vulnerability. It serves as a signal that the time for focus groups and brand consultants has passed in favour of rediscovering a political backbone. Starmer's current reliance on standing still in the hopes of being mistaken for stability risks backfiring, rather than projecting strength, he risks becoming a forgettable figure in British history. Ultimately, the damage wasn't done by the jokes themselves, but by Starmer's inability to counter them with any authentic passion, proving that in the high-stakes world of politics, if a bit of banter can undo you, the foundation was never truly solid.
Everything we're doing, it is for our kids. It's their future. And everything is just going against it. This inheritance tax it's ridiculous. It's a final straw.
I'm just so emotional. Why do we as farmers have to do this? We shouldn't, you know.
This government needs to realise it's never been hungry since World War II. They're going to be hungry. because if they keep putting tax on the farmers, it's going to have a massive impact.
Ultimately, Clarkson will return to his familiar role, navigating farm fields in high-powered tractors, grumbling about environmental regulations and penning columns that capture the essence of a perpetually irritated traditionalist. There is an undeniable authenticity in his approach. He is loud, occasionally absurd, and entirely unapologetic about who he is. In contrast, Keir Starmer remains fixed at a podium, seemingly caught in an internal debate over whether Labour stands for transformative reform or merely more ethical corporate presentations. He vacillates between echoing the Blair era and projecting the sterile persona of a human LinkedIn profile. If this is meant to be the pinnacle of post-Tory hope, one might argue that a Clarkson-authored budget would at least offer a bit of excitement. While a world of fuel subsidies for combine harvesters and twin-turbo ambulances might be chaotic, it would never be boring. Unlike Starmer, Clarkson wouldn't require a lengthy public consultation to recognise that a nation thrives on functional infrastructure and leaders whose convictions are made of something sturdier than couscous. You know, political optics have reached a new low when farmers, wielding more heavy machinery than social media influence, appear to carry more weight than the leader of the opposition. Jeremy Clakson even joked that rural voters would sooner elect a badger than cast a ballot for Starmer, a quip that was met with telling silence rather than disagreement. At this point, Labour's most effective strategy might be to quietly airbrush Jeremy Corbyn from the history books and pretend Starmer materialised fully formed from a centrist think tank like a beige Athena emerging from Tony Blair's forehead. The contrast in presentation is equally damaging. Clarkson delivers his critiques in a leather jacket with the smug, relaxed confidence of a man who has been thrown out of far more prestigious establishments than Westminster. Meanwhile, Starmer responds with press conferences that possess all the kinetic energy of a frozen PowerPoint slide. Watching him try to connect with the public is like waiting for a dial-up modem to download a single byte of charisma. Even his most loyal supporters are losing their patience. Defending someone simply for not being terrible is starting to sound less like political support and more like a hostage statement. Labour's base isn't searching for a messiah, but they are desperate for a leader who can actually land a punch, and right now Starmer couldn't connect with a sponge in zero gravity.